Tahltan First Nation has long opposed the building of a coal mine on land they consider their traditional territory in northern BC. So to say Council President Anita McPhee was excited when she heard the Supreme Court's Aboriginal title ruling would be an understatement.
Overjoyed because it was such a historical case.
Tahltan First Nation is hundreds of kilometers north of the First Nation granted title in yesterday's Supreme Court decision. But immediately after the decision came down, they wasted no time in announcing they too would file a land title claim, aiming to use it to stop the coal mine from being built. This land title claim could be the first of many after the Supreme Court's decision. It gives Aboriginal groups greater control over traditional non-treaty land and requires anyone who wants to use that land to first get consent. Business professor Ian Lee says the impact will be greatest in BC, especially for a project like the Northern Gateway Pipeline.
This is the death knell for this pipeline. With this decision, I wouldn't be surprised if in the fall or winter before the next, the spring, fall of 2015 election, if the government walks away.
Lee says resource development in BC will slow down significantly because of the ruling, and the way big capital projects like pipelines are negotiated will change. Although the decision applies to non-treaty land and most of that is in BC, in other parts of the country, like Ontario, there are older, controversial treaties covering land with major resource development. Could this ruling stop development on that land? Aboriginal law expert Larry Chartrand says likely not.
Only in a very indirect way if there was a finding that these old treaties that can be back to the 17 or 1800s didn't actually result in an agreement.
Still, Chartrand and Anita McPhee say the Supreme Court's decision has sent a strong message. Vash Capellos, Global News, Ottawa.
Hi there, I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
You're tuned in to Video Radio, where we take a look at what's going right in the world as opposed to what mainstream media does.
You know, even sometimes something as stodgy as our Supreme Court gets it right.
Yes, and the Supreme Court getting it right here has sent waves through the entire communities here in the West Coast as we stand against things like Keystone, pipelines, and nonsense.
This could be the death blow to the Northern Enbridge pipeline.
And I'm looking forward to that one. Of course, you know my stance on that one. We're continuing our look at the positivity and the things that are working. And right now, some homeless people who got protected
by the Supreme Court decision. Check it out.
The deadline for those living in Vancouver's Oppenheimer Park has come and gone, but they still aren't moving.
No, I'm not going anywhere. If they want to come in and take me, I'm going in handcuffs.
Not everyone here is homeless, but they are united in finding homes for at least 30 people they say sleep here permanently. After eviction notices were served to the group, the campers turned the tables and told the city it should leave because it's unceded territory, something the city recently acknowledged.
Our mayor has even acknowledged that at one point in time, that Vancouver is unceded territory. This land is still native land until, and it's still under treaty negotiation until that's settled. The people that are camped here are welcome to stay.
City Councillor Carrie Jang says staff are working to find homes for those who need them.
Some of them are just little mischief makers, and I think how the camp started was because it was quite warm in the housing that they're actually living in, so they all sleep in the park because it was cooler.
But those living in the tents who have homes say they don't want to go back to the run-down, unsafe hotel rooms.
I pay $5.50 a month for a hole that's less than half the size of this tent. They're not cleaned. Our showers are falling apart. Our washrooms are clogged.
A statement released by the city says the tents and the structures must be removed. It says camping isn't allowed in parks because it creates safety concerns and creates barriers for others who want to enjoy the area.
We're going to be here for the long run. I mean, we're going to continue pressuring the city.
An already scheduled volunteer event providing food and clothing to hundreds of people went ahead as planned around the camp. And while police are keeping a close eye on the park, there is no word on when those living in the tents might be removed.
So Oppenheimer.
So it's really cool to see the people standing up to the power.
Yes, and it's working. Remember, we got a cop fired just by standing our ground. You can do the same thing in your community. Activism is winning, fascism is losing. I think I've said that like 3 times now.
And speaking of fascism losing, again,
Yeah.
apparently the ongoing water crisis in Detroit is being alleviated somewhat by some good Samaritans.
Social media stepping up to bat again. If you're unaware, it's the Detroit Waters Company that started turning off the water to people, causing an international outrage.
But a couple of ladies got together using some hashtag on Twitter and started a campaign that actually pays for people's water bills.
I am so impressed. Check this out.
When the tap runs dry and ordinary things like brushing your teeth or washing the dishes become impossible tasks, who do you turn to for help? Well, for Detroit residents, it's anonymous donors who are paying it forward by offering to pay off water debt. It started off as a conversation on Twitter between two women living thousands of miles apart, posing the question, how can I help? Hours later, that question became the underlying concept for the Detroit Water Project. Tiffany Bell from Oakland and Christy Tillman from Boston built a website to help people pledge donations.
But we've had people, from faraway countries, even as far as Greece, who have asked to help and things like that. So I like to say that generosity has no passport.
Here's how it works. Detroit residents go online and fill out a form with their name, their address, their water account information, and the amount of money that they are past due. Now, volunteers with the website verify the account information with the city and then match them with donors who want to help. Donors go online and submit their email addresses and also the amount of money that they are willing to pledge with 2 simple clicks. 2 quick clicks and you can really help someone out. The donor then makes the payment directly to the city. The money never falls directly into the hands of the Detroit residents or into the water project hands itself. So far, the Detroit Water Project has had 400 people request for help and upwards of $15,000 pledged. Now, most of the bills are just a couple $100. The biggest ones were $6,000. A simple act of kindness to get water flowing once again for a family who really needs it.
So if you ever think you can't make a difference, remember that's just conditioning from a local society that has something as stupid as you can't fight City Hall. Yes, you can, and you can win.
Because, that's what we have to do, because otherwise we're screwed.
Yeah. So standing up against City Hall being a good thing that it is, we've got some guys who are standing up against the financial nonsense.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about inequality and pay, and there's a university president who decided to do something about it.
So check this out.
A university president has decided to forego some of his own salary in order to make up for the measly salaries of low-paid employees on campus. Kentucky State University's interim president, Raymond Burse, forewent $90 grand for those that were making less than $10.25 an hour on campus. So he reasoned that $10.25 is pretty much what many consider a sort of living wage. So he thought it incomprehensible that some people were making $7.25. And here's what he has to say about it. So my whole thing is I don't need to work. This is not a hobby, but in terms of the people who do the hard work and heavy lifting, they are at the lower pay scale. So boom, awesome. Amazing act of kindness. So his salary went from about $350,000 to about $250,000. So he's still making a pretty substantial salary. He was the president back in the 80s for about 7 years, and he's just coming back in the interim for about a year while they find a new president. So you might think, these are just going to be temporary changes. However, he says, no, they're not. We're going to set the salary for about $250,000 for the next president, and he's setting it at $250,000 for himself as well. And the new rate for new hires will be $10.25. So he's saying no one on campus shall make less than $10.25. And he's getting some criticism, which is kind of bizarre that he's getting criticism for this, but he's responded with the following. He says, "This is not a publicity stunt. You don't give up $90,000 for publicity. I did this for the people. This is something I've been thinking about from the very beginning."
Okay, so there's the university professor who is doing it.
Yeah, university president, actually.
Yeah, so our president, yeah. So, I mean, come on. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, You could probably do the same thing right now. I'm talking to those people who are doing nothing but renovating their homes and going on vacation when they could be making a positive impact in the local community.
And also, of course, how many people we have at City Hall making how much money?
Yeah, 200 people making over $100,000 a year, maintaining fascism and enforcing laws that prevent people from giving away food for free.
Speaking of giving away food for free.
Oh, wow, segue, right on. A billionaire. Okay, we've got clips on this. One thing about the Chinese community, they have certain traditions that fly in the face of fascism.
That's right, and apparently recently the same Chinese billionaire was giving away canned air to people in polluted cities in China.
Yes.
He showed up in New York and made a huge impact with the homeless population.
Check this out.
Hundreds of homeless packed Central Park's Boathouse restaurant to dine on sesame-crusted tuna and filet mignon.
It's excellent. First time having fresh tuna like this.
I think he's making homeless people feel better about themselves.
The gourmet meal, along with $300 in cash per person, is a gift from Chinese recycling magnate Chen Guangbiao.
And I hope that you will use this money as a seed money for whatever job training or job education.
The 46-year-old also performed magic tricks during the sometimes bizarre event. It's the latest outrageous stunt for a man who goes all out to publicize his good deeds, including selling canned air to highlight China's air pollution. Whether Mr. Chen is promoting his causes or himself is debatable. This is a person whose ego is so big, his business card reads most influential person in China and most charismatic philanthropist. The head of the New York City Rescue Mission says the mogul's motives are in the right place.
He grandstands. I mean, the media wouldn't be here if he wasn't doing this. But once he has a platform, it's an opportunity to highlight the needs of the poor.
The tycoon ended with his signature version of We Are the World for the crowd. Alexis Christoforous, CBS News, New York.
So that's an awesome story.
That is so cool. I mean, the guy does know how to use the media.
Yes, he does a really good job with that. And make sure that you do the same thing. Remember, most homeless people, in fact, a vast majority of homeless people are not there on purpose.
No, I mean, I meet people all the time who just have had unfortunate circumstances.
And we're talking about people with degrees, people with jobs, people with careers who ended up homeless due to circumstances that were beyond their control, but enforced by fascism, by banks and government. We need to start looking at this story.
And we'll be back with more stories of positivity, sustainability, and of course, we will continue to add to Stephen Harper's nightmare.
That's all coming up. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Remember, if you're tuned into this,
you are the resistance.
I have always loved politics. Politics has always been my baseball. I love the competition, I love the ideas, I love the brilliance, the pomposity, and the idiocy of some of the great characters that practice the art. And I have always believed it's an art worth practicing. Now, I understand, in Canadian politics, the bar is very low. Let's face it, you've got to get on your stomach and crawl to fit under there. But there has always been a little bit of sunshine. There's always been a little bit of light. This past week, I'm not so sure. Robocalls. We now know that in the last federal election, hundreds of thousands of calls came out of Edmonton to Liberal and NDP voters in 18 different ridings, claiming they were calling from Elections Canada, lying, sending people to voting booths that didn't exist. And what's really freaking me out is that I'm not angry, which is a very bad sign because anger is my cardio. I think I may be disappointed. Either that or I'm having a stroke. Now, I understand in politics there have always been dirty tricks. But this is not some drunks tearing down some posters. This is not even a negative ad campaign. This is big money and technology targeting people who want to vote and trying to physically stop them. We can't have this. You put 10 Canadians in a room, they'll disagree on 10 things. Fine. But we have always agreed that voting is a fundamental right. This is not a left or a right thing. This is just a thing. If we don't believe in that, What else do we have to believe in? If stopping people who want to vote from doing so becomes the new normal, we will have hit a new low in the sewer that is Canadian politics. Keep this up, we'll need a snorkel to get under that bar. Any deeper, we all drown.